at this. Dude, you have the worst. Hey, Happy New Year's, guys.
Happy New Year.
I thought you were gonna sing.
We didn't know where to pick up or where it started.
I got duped.
That one's hard to know where to start in. At the very end.
Hey,
there is this saying in French that if you sing so bad, it starts raining. So, and I've done it sometimes. So I didn't want to stop.
Then keep singing, Rob.
What but this is what we say on IoT Coffee Talk. You can 1 minute of bad karaoke is always entertaining. After that,
no bueno.
Turn that mic off. Yeah. Well, hey, this is the first episode of the year for you guys, right? David, you weren't on last week, were you?
I don't think so. Or maybe it was. I don't think so.
Well, okay. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How's everything going?
Or as Eddie Murphy would say, Merry New Year.
Merry New Year, yeah.
We're actually not sure it's the new year because maybe we're in the metaverse and it's a different timeline. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could make it a different timeline, right? Yeah. Hey, Dimitri, good to have you back. It's been a long time.
Yeah, thanks. Kind of a little bit busy, but New Year resolution. I'm going to be here more for now, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, cool. Well, look at the size of that mic, man. That thing is huge. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah, I know.
Very professional.
Yeah. So, hey, since we didn't have you guys last week, why don't we start off with, hey, what are some of your thoughts on the big things in IoT this year? What do you think are going to be the big themes that our audience should be aware of? Anyone have an idea?
That's the problem, is that it's more of the same. There's not a lot of excitement right now. It's just really like, can we make money doing this? Can we just keep forging ahead?
I'll be self-serving here and say that agriculture is going to be the #1 IoT use case for 2022.
There you go.
And apparently there's already analysts who are saying that's the #1 thing for venture and stuff like that. And I think the reason for that isn't because there's anything magical. It's just more untapped, I'd say. When we've been doing industrial IoT, we're like blinders on factory, warehouse, blah, blah, blah. And at least in my experience over last summer and then seeing lots of other players in the space, if there's a greenfield, no pun intended, area that's not as well saturated or tapped, it's agriculture.
Yeah. Well, CES, which happened last week, one of the biggest headlines of the event was what John Deere was doing with that autonomous tractor, right? Or harvester or whatever. I think my son, who just turned 2, knows more about ag equipment than I do. I know that he knows more about construction equipment because I didn't know what a backhoe was.
Backhoes, front-end loaders, skid gear. Loaders.
I love that.
You young 20-somethings with your 2-year-old kids, I get it. You're just starting out in life. I totally understand.
Good luck.
Right? How would you know about anything in the world as it turns out, right?
Yeah.
That John Deere thing is important and all of that stuff. Because the thing is, and again, agriculture is not sexy or any of that stuff, and it doesn't feel like a big money play or anything like that. Think about, we talk about the metaverse and think about sci-fi movies you've seen where sometimes they do maybe pan out to the rest of the world and it's just these giant, it's just autonomous farms are actually completely done autonomously by robots and giant machines. Obviously, what's the other big trend in agriculture? Vertical farming, indoor farming.
Yeah.
Hydroponics.
I think there's an interesting comment here because that remind me a lot of the go-to-market debates we had on my time at GE. And my point has always been that we are going very horizontal to all the industrial use case. But if you look at the different domains, there are actually two categories. You have optimization, which is, aviation, oil and gas, where we're doing the same thing. We're transporting people or we're pumping out of the oil out of the planet.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have domain where there is true potential transformation. So smart cities is probably less than it is, but agriculture is one. There's nothing. There's no real tech over there. So by focusing on places where you can really transform, because within the inside there's potential, is actually much more innovative and exciting than pumping more oil or more gas. So.
No, you're so right. We think about oil and gas or manufacturing maybe being 10 or 20 years behind, healthcare being 40 years behind that. And then agriculture may depending on where you go, it's still the 1800s.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so as far as a huge transformation potential, you're right. Yeah. Agriculture has got the most opportunity to grow for sure.
Well,
I was going to ask you, Rob, back in 2020, when I think that's the last time I went to CES, John Deere was there then, and they were talking about all of their software and their technology. And it was really more around tracking the fleets, tracking the maintenance and doing things like that. So I'm like, that stuff's been around in ag for a while, but I think what you're saying and what you're seeing, maybe agree with me or not, it's moving more in how they're farming, how they're checking soil, how they're optimizing the whole farming results, kind of the quality piece of everything in terms of the product, not necessarily the equipment. The equipment stuff, I think there's been a lot of advancements around that over the past 3-4 years. It's now really moving more to the product itself.
Yeah, there's so row crops, and what I mean by that is the stuff you see mostly like in the Midwest. Corn, wheat, things like that. It's really just uniform. And that's where you see John Deere and combines and all that stuff. And the idea of using, RTK as an advance over GPS, for precision. So it can really precisely go up and down the rows. Then there's this other big world of farming that's not as uniform as that, like apple orchards, like the stuff I did, specialty crops, where you don't necessarily use big giant machines like that. It's a little different, and so the same kind of condition monitoring that we do for machines in a factory, you would actually put solar powered, battery powered devices and associated sensors embedded in those orchards or in the hops fields or whatever it is, because you can't necessarily do that with wheat and corn because those whole things are just going to get mowed down. And so that's why they're putting sensors on the machines, or you might do drones flying over as well, as opposed to embedding it to do the condition monitoring there, and obviously putting stuff in the soil. We need to be more precise about the application of water and chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizer. Fertilizer is one of the most expensive inputs a farmer has. Water, if you're in California, is now the #1 most expensive input you have. People got to eat. And also
I need almond milk with my coffee.
Oh my God. You're like, you're one of those people?
Actually, for the record, because the interwebs are forever, I drink my coffee black and bitter. That was a milk joke.
Okay. All right. You made me feel better. Yeah. Those almond people in California. Woo, that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water. Also, if you think, let's expand agriculture. We're just talking about you. Everybody thinks it's Farmer Ted out on the field. I don't know if anybody got that reference. Anyway, but there's the other part of agriculture, which is processing. Like when you harvest, it goes into giant buildings, warehouse-looking things. It's process manufacturing, how they process stuff, how it looks. It may as well be an oil refinery or a chemical plant.
Yeah,
it's conveyor belts and machines doing stuff and kilns drying out. I would argue there is as much industrial stuff on these farms as there are in the rest of the world building cars, because all the giant farms have them. Smaller ones usually filter into a co-op because they can't necessarily afford that stuff. Just like giant heavy machinery from John Deere, not every farmer can afford those giant, and so they'll do stuff through a co-op. So there's opportunity in that industrial IoT looking stuff there that people forget about, but it's right next to the farm. And then there's the supply chain. Once we do that, we got to get that stuff to market to the restaurant, and we're losing 30 to 40% of all food is being wasted in that part of the equation as well. So a lot of potential upside, right?
Yeah.
I'd say too, I kind of look at it as two sides as well. As one is just like with John Deere and OEM, right? They are manufacturing equipment, right? So they're embedding IoT technologies and sensor systems and solutions and software, all these great things as part or an add-on to their services when you buy that equipment. Where on the other side, there's the aftermarket where once you've got you've got all of your equipment and you're not buying all the new latest and greatest stuff, but you want to be able to do some of these things is how do I retrofit my existing farming and agricultural plan with things that might be available for me to augment and not have to buy all this equipment. So I don't know, that's maybe even for the farmers that just don't have these massive funds or they don't have these massive operations, to be able to go out and do that, but inexpensively.
Yeah, brownfield modernization. So, hey, so Stephanie, you're like nothing really is different. Rob, you think ag is the big bag for 2022 and beyond, probably. Yeah. So, Dimitri, what are your thoughts?
I'm afraid the confusion will probably continue in the type of technologies that exist in IoT. So I don't see a lot of initiatives to clean that up. But I would say what I said earlier. I do believe.
Wait. What about the digital twin consortium?
Oh, is it going to say?
Come on!
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Oh, this guy is a digital twin dude. Come on! You have to say something about. You have to provide some hope for digital twin. Come on.
I tell you what I'm trying to do in this space. I'm trying to keep on innovating there, and I think that I actually think that the next big thing in terms of technology is actually bridging the gap between the design simulation side and the operation side, because there's still disconnect between the two. With the design stuff, simulation, with very complicated models, and then there are people that put sensors and do some machine learning and try to figure out with statistics how it works. So there's still a gap. So that's what I think is the thing that needs to be solved. But it's still an area where the incentive to actually align and have kind of fluid communication is not there. I would actually rebound on what we were just saying about John Deere, because I don't know what the latest on their business model, but last time I heard about it, there was actually a big pushback because what they're trying to do is put software into their equipment, but in such a way that if you have a failure or if you want to repurpose, you have to go to them. It's not open and you cannot do it. So if those models keep on evolving that way, and we see actually a lot of IoT things like that, where the vendors is trying to lock you in, trying to do not only the manufacturing, but also the operation and the maintenance, then it's actually very counterproductive. So, in a nutshell, I think there is room for innovation, but there is still the mentality of, consortium, mega companies that own the whole chain. So the coupling that ignited all the innovation in the business world, I unfortunately still do not see that in industrial, where you actually have John Deere that create new vehicles, publish them with a digital twin so everybody can invent new models on how to use them. We're not there yet. And that's the big next thing. Will 2022 bring that? I hope, not sure.
Cool.
I was gonna add one more thing that just kind of popped into my head, but just Dimitri, you kind of made me think about it. I was thinking about automation, but one of the big things that I've seen over the past few years, and of course it's not changing because so many people are not going into the workforce, is that the industry as a whole, we're being pushed to automate more things because we will not, and this is going to probably get worse, we will not have the labor force that we expect to have, nor will we have the labor force that's skilled the way we need for them to be in order to scale. So we have to rely on automation technologies, robotics, cobotics, and we have to work collaboratively with a lot of these systems because I feel like we're essentially being forced into some of that, or some industries are that never had to think about that in the past, because either their workforce is not coming back to the office now, and they have to kind of make decisions now, or just why would we want to continue doing the same when we really don't know what's going to happen with this COVID, right? And what's the next pandemic? And all of these people that decided to not go back into the workforce, what happens to all of those people that retired and said, hey, I'm out, I'm no longer working, when we need that skilled workforce? So I think about it from a workforce perspective, is that we have challenges ahead of us, and technology is going to be a big source to help fill in some of those gaps.
Wow. Yeah. And you know what? Something just popped into my head as you were talking about that. It seems like as we continue to struggle modernizing our workforce along the lines of what you just outlined, Stephanie, we're moving more toward control models organizationally versus competency-based models, right? Where, you know, a lot of I mean, think about it, even in a retail context, if you bring in new folks and your systems are changing, becoming more advanced, you're progressing your retail model, but the folks who you're hiring don't have that background to engage in those new digitally augmented retail models, then the purpose of the technology is to control the behaviors of these people, folks, humans that are essential in a certain way, but don't necessarily have the competencies required to do the work autonomously and without a significant amount of guidance. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that's a danger. That's where I think this whole fear of automation really becomes more of a reality. You really have to bring people along and enable them to fill these new roles, right? Because we always talk, when we talk about automation and how you shouldn't be afraid of it, is that, well, there's always going to be these new roles. Well, with globalization, the economics are going to force those roles to geographies where labor is cheaper, right? And
and you have to think too, Leonard, who trains or educates? It causes a lot of problems. Who trains or educates? You know, I think we've had this historical way where we're young, we go to school, we go to college, and then we work, and then we no longer learn after that. Yeah. Well, we're in an industry where we have to keep learning, but there are other industries where now that's going to have to take place, where in the past it was, okay, once you start your career, that's it. So who does the training and the education? Is it the industry or the employers? Or do we have some kind of integrated learning where people are actually going back to college and getting additional skills, you know, to
is it on the individual?
I mean, who does this? Because I do see this as a problem. We want to do all of these great things, but and we're leaning on our people, but we have labor shortages that we're dealing with, from the basic mundane labor type skills all the way to executives, right? I think that we're having this is going to hit the US like more than I think other areas.
Right. But you know, when you think about shortages, there's a supply aspect and then there's a demand aspect, meaning, you know, what you're demanding is not available in the market, yet there may be tons of people who are still looking for employment of some sort. So there's this mismatch in skills and competencies that companies are looking for, which is the demand side. Then on the supply side, I mean, obviously, headcount doesn't mean anything. It's skill alignment and how many people out of that total headcount actually qualify for the jobs that you have open.
And if we can't lean on people to help with innovation, we're going to lean on technology and solutions that are out there that are helping us get there without people sometimes. Or I think a lot of folks have been talking about collaboration between humans and machines. You know, that I expect to continue.
Look what you started, Dimitri.
Hey, by the way,
you opened that door.
Yeah, you did.
For our audience, we have breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Here at the IoT Coffee Talk news desk, I was just handed this new breaking news report.
Inflation?
Our friends at Foghorn have been acquired by Johnson Controls.
Wow, JC. Yeah.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah, so
that is big news.
Congratulations to David King, to our friend Sastry Malati, Chris Penrose, the whole team over there. Big congratulations.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is big IoT news.
That is. That's
we're shook. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna share details about what's happening with the report that came out around inflation. I was like, oh God, here we go.
No, we're screwed.
There's no simple answer to that. It's just nobody wants to do it. So it's all right.
Yeah. Wow.
One very simple answer to that. But anyway.
Dimitri, you're saying something. Your audio's just a little tad low.
No, you turned down your audio too much.
Yeah, so he asked me to turn it down. So
a little.
I was saying the good news is that it's not GE Digital buying them, because that would be bad.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big deal for them. I mean,
yeah.
You know, we've known those guys for a long time.
Really cool. Really cool platform.
It's been a long road. We actually had a lot of conversation with them when I was at GE, but I was like 5-6 years ago. So it's been a long road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they've certainly done a lot in, well, a lot of places, but certainly oil and gas. You know, their biggest investor is Saudi Aramco. And so yeah, no, it's good. Congratulations to them. That's exciting.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, actually. So David, dude, what's your prediction? What do you think is going to be big this year?
I predict that my Verizon phone is blowing up with a Foghorn thing anyway. So that's gonna. I have lots of phone calls after this.
Yeah, I know that's
good on them. So my predictions, in the IoT thing, nothing's going to change. It's going to be more of the same, except the marketing. Like I think marketers are going to get more cheeky about the things that happen. So let's just start with John Deere. Awesome. You deliver automation using your own satellite, so that now the machines can do what they need to do in the middle of nowhere, because you've got, it's satellite. So they're going to have to figure out how to enable that Farmer Ted, that has that mobile phone that is about 17,000 miles from the nearest coverage tower, right? So, because I need to access the application to, remote control the thing that's connected to satellites. So they're going to be working on a way to somehow extend and, make the rig, the combine, an access point of sorts. What else do I think is going to happen? Well, it's funny. I think on the last call that we did for Christmas, I was talking about, M&A, and, we just heard about that,
There you go.
And what will be a good one? And I think we always end up talking about security, and I'm going to make this about marketing security. I think one of the good things we'll see is that vendors who claim that they solve X security problem are going to be forced to be more transparent as to how, when, and where they protect whatever it is that they're claiming. Customers are asking really good questions that they were not asking 5 years before. 5 years before, it's like, it's secure, let's go. Now it's like, no, stop. So anyway, so those are my predictions. More transparency being pushed out of vendors and suppliers, customers asking better questions, and just better marketing to IoT, because marketing is the reason 75% of IoT projects fail.
Oh, so you're not in marketing, are you?
Are you saying those marketing folks are over-promising?
Oh gosh, just some of them.
Yeah. Well, there's. I mean, it's when it becomes marketing gone wild. I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with marketing. There is a lot wrong with marketing gone wild. When you're just putting BS out there. And there's just so much BS, and so we need to be so the valuable marketers, I think, well, I know, are the ones who can tell those durable stories, right? Relevant and durable stories. Because the ones who push out the BS, I mean, eventually the BS gets called out by reality, right? You sit there and you go out and say, hey, look, this end market opportunity or this new market opportunity or TAM is like $1 gajillion. Well, when it doesn't pan out, you know, number one, a lot of people suffer, and you should lose credibility because you shouldn't be doing stupid crap like that.
No, but back,
you know what I'm saying?
Back to good questions, Leonard. You know, if we pick, you know, topic X, and I say, hey, for this thing, the TAM is Y. Then the next question is like, well, that's great. That's a large market, but how much of that market can my company with my resources and my product can get out of that TAM? And now you have a very different question.
Yeah.
You got your SAM and your SOM.
Yeah. But the most important question is, how'd you come up with that number?
We got numbers from fly by night analyst firms that just make shit up and put it out on the internet.
How did you come up with that number?
I ran
every single friggin' thing that, you know, anyone markets out there. It goes and cites XYZ consulting firm. How did you come up with that friggin' number?
I went to all these websites and they said it's going to be like a 35% CAGR until 2027, and it was going to be a $75 billion market. So that's what I just copied and pasted it.
That's very, very complex, Rob. I just used
I took the average of 6 Google searches, I took the average of 6 Google searches and applied the CAGR over a 5-year period, and boom, I got my 5-year forecast.
Boom. And you know what? People are sheep because they believe all that stuff.
Yes. And remember, when you come to pitch that to your multinational large company, take in consideration how many years of salary you need for retirement so you can stretch out the revenue projections. So if I'm going to retire in 10 years, I promise you, we're going to get 70% ROI in 10 years and 3 months. So
I love it. I love it. Hey, also, more breaking news. It's not as breaking, and you may not be able to make this out very well.
Yes.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazon Sidewalk Bridge Pro happened last week, and I'm friends. One of my friends who we do a lot of stuff in agriculture together. This guy Scott Waller. He's a CEO of Thingy, and so his company was named in the press release and everything from Amazon, and now he's getting interviews from 1 million media outlets.
I bet.
But yeah, so basically, you know, there's the whole Sidewalk thing, kind of LoRa deal. They were embedding it in your Echo devices and Ring doorbells, and now they're going to take it even further out for devices where it could be potentially used in rural areas, agriculture, stuff like that. And so pretty interesting stuff. And I was just having coffee actually yesterday with Scott, and we were talking about what it meant for him, because he's big into building high-end air quality sensors. Guy spent all last summer in Napa, actually. Those wine growers are worried about smoke taint in a big way.
Oh yeah.
Well, I know, and Denver. Well, I don't know if it's all of Colorado or it was Denver specifically, but they had some requirements that went out that said you have to have XYZ. You know, you actually had metrics in terms of what, in terms of air quality. So there are companies that had to come in and kind of retrofit and figure out what do we do now to censor and, you know, provide alerts and meet these new requirements. So from a government and regulatory perspective, some of these things might come down the pipeline in certain states that are really struggling with air quality and meeting certain even hazmat requirements. So
absolutely,
there's some cool use cases there that are coming in.
Yeah. You know, I saw that a lot in the summertime in Eastern Washington. The sensors I was deploying also had air quality sensors in them. Yeah. Not as high end as the one that Thingy's doing, but there was a law that we heard about during the summertime, the state of Washington, related specifically to agriculture workers. And when air quality exceeded a certain threshold, you had to go out into the fields and tell them to go inside. because it was dangerous air quality. And so and then we oil and gas, methane releases, all that stuff, they need to monitor that.
It is so funny that, once, ESG and sustainability and green bonds and all this stuff became in vogue, it's now super cool to do this monitoring. But one day after we stopped recording, I will tell you about a company that kicked me out of a meeting because I don't know, it occurred to me that they should be monitoring the things that were coming out of the smokestacks, and the meeting ended abruptly. And
dirty laundry. Dirty laundry.
But now it's like, yes, this is part of our, responsibility to, shareholders. And anyway, you triggered me, Rob.
You triggered them.
Yeah.
Touche.
You stepped on it.
Yeah. Hey,
you know what?
You live and learn.
David's right.
You do.
All my, most of my connections in this world are back in Texas and in Houston and West Texas. And most of my friends they're all in the oil and gas business. And yes, the change that I hear from them is palpable. They're all about zero emissions. They're all about driving to that. And so you're right. Somebody flipped a switch somewhere.
And it's good. It's good.
It is good.
It is good, but the only problem is that they still control the switch. So
they do.
What that conversation actually made me thinking is, and I know there is not a lot of reliance in or hope in government, especially in this country. But when you think about this new big infrastructure bill that it's supposed to happen, that's one of the things that should be part of it. Putting sensors everywhere and make the data open. So if I go back to my initial idea of, how do you unlock innovation? If we keep on having those initiatives be stuck into a new Chevron doing it, or this factory doing it, or this industry or city doing it, no, it has to be kind of public data that everybody can innovate on top. And then we start seeing. And I think to me, that's one of the key issues of IoT. There's always this, I'm going to use innovation to optimize my own little stack. But, like John Deere, I'm going to make sure that the other one cannot touch that. So there is this whole lack of open data world in the IoT space that we don't have that much anymore in the business world, because we have APIs, we have data. There's a lot of data sets you can do in the business world. We're not there yet in the IoT world, far from it, or in the physical world more generally, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I think one of the big issues that is the question of monetization of IoT. That's probably what's driving a bit of that behavior, don't you think, Dimitri?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe this is actually because we think about, there's this new data from the machines. I have to monetize it up front.
Yeah. Well, that's what IoT people have been telling everyone. It's like, hey, you can harvest all this data and then you can monetize it, and then that basically.
But don't you think that banks started to open APIs to do transactions? They thought, I'm not going to be the one controlling the transactions. Some random shop can now do it on its own. No, you have to, and I think that's probably the challenge. We haven't found that right balance in the physical world. I would argue that digitization of the business world, it was pretty simple. It was about transaction and communication between people, okay? But how you make the good, how you make the good more responsibly, how you make the good more sustainable, this is a much more complicated process than just commerce. So we are hitting the digitization of this physical world, and we haven't cracked it yet. I really believe that's the problem.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Definitely something to meditate on, because
I know I tend to think too much, but sorry. But but somebody will have to start, and in a way, I give you an example, and maybe that's, I'm not sure the analogy is 100% cool, but in France in the 70s, there was a plan to actually put phones and Minitel at that time. That was a little terminal, but that was funded by the government. And it cost them money, but it created the whole ecosystem. Like new banking from home and servers. Now they did it wrong. It was pure client server. It was not as open as the internet, but the idea was good. So you need an impulse that is not just for making money in the beginning to succeed something. The web was done by a bunch of dreamers that just wanted to share stuff. So, but I haven't seen that kind of defining moment in IoT yet.
But with this whole Web 3.0, Silliness. I don't know what to call it. I just call it silliness. I mean, it's a mindset. It's something that's driving a mindset change on how we look at the internet. But it's all about monetization. So when you start to look at people wanting to monetize stuff, now we're talking about people monetizing their little fiefdoms of content and their contribution. They're basically taking all of that profit that Facebook is making on social and then distributing that out to everyone and allowing them to have their own sort of open mechanism for monetizing their digital self or cyber physical self, right? So, but when we start talking about that, then we're talking about even more localized isolation of data. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can say that if all this stuff is on a blockchain, and I mean this super sarcastically, then it becomes transparent, open to everyone. It all depends.
Well,
I don't think that's going to be the case. But you know what I'm saying? I think what you're talking about has a serious counterpoint that's developing, and I think this thing that people are calling Web 3.0. And again, it's a mindset. Whether or not it's really happening the way that people are talking about, that's separate from how people actually are thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was not necessarily intending that everything should be totally decentralized. And by the way, when it comes to blockchain and decentralization, I always ask you, give me an example of a human construct that doesn't rely on the central authority. Give me one. Okay, give me one. But aside from that, that's not really what I was intending. What I was intending is giving this level of access to data that can create innovation. And I do believe that if you censor the world, especially around environmental issues, you can see a lot of innovation. But the cost for an innovative company to put sensors everywhere to create an innovative solution about sustainability is so high that it's only the big ones that will be able to do it. So that's why I'm thinking there's always this little impulse at the infrastructure level that someone has to build in the hope of monetization. But if you put monetization up front, you end up with Facebook. Yeah, they're going to do it because they know how to monetize. So.
That's true. Wow.
Anyway, I'm rambling more than Rob. What's happening this year? This is weird.
Oh my God.
You did say meditate, and I was just thinking meditate on the metaverse. It's like this, it's just gotten out of, like, I saw your post, Rob, I guess, who was it who posted? It was like, everything's meta. And I was just like, you're talking about marketing, David. That's what people are going nuts and running with right now. And it's just almost disgusting.
Yeah.
Because they just are slapping it on something.
Yeah, but look, this ultimate goal of the Zuckerberg universe, of living this alternate reality where now all of our problems go away. I mean, it's very provocative. Look, I joke, we all have our problems. Some of them are different, some of them are identical. And, the premise of like, wow, there's this world where I don't have to worry about anything. Let me just plug myself into the matrix and be a battery and forget about it. And I don't know, that's just appealing for some people, but it's like, dude, reality is here. Like, my mortgage is not virtualized.
Yeah. And I think it could actually become really, as people detach themselves from reality, that could have real economic impact. You have all these people plugged into virtual stuff that actually doesn't contribute anything in terms of physical value. That could be a bad thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe that's the ultimate step in terms of evolution towards an entertainment society. Because, humans, we used to have to hunt to be able to have food. And that was all our occupation. And then now we disconnected from that. We started playing and having games. And to me, this is the ultimate gaming. It's just that instead of spending two hours per day into doing gaming, he's going to spend 10 hours per day in the metaverse, but that's the same stuff to some extent. So maybe this is where we're going. I don't know. Not that I like it, but
and we put a lot of value in it.
That's what it is.
You know, Zynga just got acquired by like $12 billion this week. And I mean, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, like that's, I don't know. I mean, again, what do I know? I have a 9 to 5. What do I know about valuation? But I mean, I'm like Farmville, those guys. $12
yeah, but I mean, Zynga has been around. Number one, they've been around for quite some time.
Yeah,
they have some major mobile titles. Mobile gaming is massive.
No, they got mobile right, and this acquisition makes sense. You know, like now you have this whole console-based library with all this mobile-based talent. No, I get it. It's just that the valuation was like 63x. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's the acquisition makes sense. It's just like the value was like, wow, they really wanted them.
Yeah.
But you know, those game and those universe, the ways they attract people is by going at the fundamentals of the way the human brains work. So to some extent, they are like drugs. So it's legalized drug to some extent. I mean, if I exaggerate, it is. You think about it, you get people hooked to it. You know they're going to pay and come back. Yeah, he see Rob. He's getting his shot.
Yeah,
he's in the vortex.
Yeah. Actually, maybe we should talk about Metaverse again sometime, because you guys are making a bunch of light bulbs go off in my head. I mean, most of them are pretty dystopian, disturbing.
Did anybody watch the videos? So there was a Metaverse Summit within CES, and I watched a bunch of the videos as that went on.
That must be interesting.
I haven't watched that. I have a lot of content to catch up on after being sick, but I heard about that, Rob. I got to check it out.
I got to check it out. Dude, send out the link, and then I'll also post it on the, when we go live with this.
When we publish
podcast.
On YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you.
There were 2 days worth of content in the Metaverse Summit within CES, and that was the one thing I posted I thought was ridiculous. Well, everybody had their point of view, but the kickoff keynote was the chief digital officer at Microsoft, and he's the one who said, "Oh, and the metaverse will be powered by Azure, by the Microsoft Cloud, and Teams will be your portal, your view into the metaverse." And I threw up in my mouth.
I can't.
Now,
you're right. You know, Steffi is like, I just can't. I can't.
I didn't see this keynote, Rob, but did he have something smoking that you kind of hold like this in your hand before? I didn't see it.
Well, I'm sorry, Rob.
Everyone vapes now, David. You know that.
You know, I just aged myself once again.
This is all news. Bill Gates said exactly the same in the 80s when he's taking your information at your fingertips and launching Office. It's just the modern version of Office. Same stuff. Microsoft saying, "Hey, we're doing it. It's going to be on us."
Yeah, we're all gonna be just an object in a PowerPoint.
I'm sure though at CES there was a big section on the e-cig market. By the way, you know how they have different sections at CES. There's probably a big e-cig section at the conference hall.
Oh, gee.
Wow. Yeah, I just hate it when I see someone who's supposed to be a technology leader, and then I find out they're actually a salesman.
Yeah.
Most of them are, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's part of the job description.
We were talking about marketing earlier, and but beside market size, and I know half of my life is being a marketer, but it always starts with your product. So if you don't have, and that's really, I had actually a couple of bad experiences in startup where they had crap product and they were thinking that hiring a marketer will solve the problem. It never works. I've tried.
Yeah, of course. We'll solve it with marketing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, is Tesla the only exception? I mean, they don't have marketing. There's no CMO. There's no but outside of that, there's just no other example. But at the end, it's just the product. Does the product work? And if it doesn't work, there's no marketing that can save you, man.
Oh yeah. No, that's a great point. But they did market. They had the media marketing for them. And they didn't have to invest. It's, and you're right. Marketing can only get you that far. At some point, Elon had to deliver. Otherwise, none of this stuff that's happened to Tesla would be happening. And, there's a lot of folks who go, oh, well, Apple's all about marketing. It's like, no, you don't become a $3 trillion company by marketing crap products. Sorry. Well, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and actually, this Apple argument is actually completely stupid because it's much, much easier to do fantastic marketing when you have a good or great product. So,
Amen.
As simple as that.
Speaking of no amount of marketing can save certain products. I was cleaning up my office just yesterday and found some old business cards from Microsoft, and so there's a little cautionary tale about marketing and products.
But you know what? It's funny that you say that, Rob. I was cleaning my stuff out last week and I was pulling out a bunch of old Blackberries. And I was like, I'm so sad. They finally shut off. A little bit nostalgic.
There is nothing better than that amazing BlackBerry keyboard.
Nothing better.
The way those keys felt, the way they were shaped.
That was pretty genius, man.
It's
incomparable. Awesome. Didn't they license it to a Chinese company to make new BlackBerry devices?
Well, John Chen moved to Foxtrot is the name, Foxconn, a while ago, so I wouldn't be surprised. By the way, did you guys saw the real first BlackBerry one where the keyboard was actually like 80% because it only had a little screen on top that was one line of message?
It was like a SkyTel two-way pager kind of.
Exactly, that's what it was.
I love it. Well, you know what? I was like one of the last ones to get rid of my BlackBerry because I just could not get rid of the two-handed text, and it just drove me crazy. So I was like one of probably the last one to move to this.
I read some blurb. You probably saw the same stuff. As recently as 2011, BlackBerry was selling 60 million devices a year. And you know
what? The good portion of their market share was overseas.
Yeah.
They were not selling in
President Obama had a BlackBerry.
Sure did.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is also in places where you really need true end-to-end security. They are the only one because they control the whole thing.
That was the reason.
You're right. They had that double envelope security.
You're right. Do we know, like
vertical integration?
Now they decommissioned the whole thing. What if you have like your private BES, be a BlackBerry Enterprise server?
BES.
Yeah. Or is that dead too?
I don't think so. I think they are trying to make a go of it in that space, actually.
Yeah.
BlackBerry's really repositioned themselves outside of the car technology. They're really just focused very heavily on security.
Yeah.
So if I've attended some of their strategy and corporate meetings, that's where they're positioning themselves. This is really all around, and they're very heavily focused around enterprise and IoT security.
Yeah, I got to jump to my next meeting.
It's noon. It's noon in Texas.
Yeah, the problems they're gonna have is because they lose this hardware portion. They're going to become a competitors of many other, cybersecurity firms. So when you have this differentiation for controlling the hardware, you have something that is unique. If like that, you don't anymore. So.
Yeah, and to that level, right? I mean, the differentiation is really hard to emulate. So, but wow, great conversation, wonderful sharing, awesome. So, who wants to take us out? It's not going to be me.
It can't be me because my laptop's about to die and I'm scared to start and it die.
Oh, really? Okay. David, it's you.
It's me.
Look at him. Look how nervous he looks. Come on, dude. You're so wonderful at it. Come on.
Folks, you have made it yet once again, maybe this far, to another episode of IoT Coffee Talk. We thank you for listening in. So make sure to like, subscribe, share, iotcoffeetalk.com. We thank our Dimitri, who came and crashed this New Year's episode with us. So thank you always for hanging out with us. And folks, if you need to know what's happening in and out of IoT in a non-corporate sponsored way, this is it, folks. We keep it real. We inform you. We have a good time. And we hope you have enjoyed the first episode of 2022. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
All right. Peace. Thanks, Dimitri, man.
I lasted.
Take care, guys.
Bye. Guys.